directed by Bob Bragg, who also co-wrote the movie. We are talking 2011's Monster Lagoon, also known as Emerald Lagoon. Now, this is a family horror movie, i.e. it's not really a horror movie, but I guess you would put it under that very mild bracket. Now, this is about a swamp creature a la Man-Thing. A comic book character that I really enjoyed when I was growing up. The story takes place in the Florida Everglades, where a professor and his assistant are out kind of doing research, and they're using kind of kayaks to kind of get around, but they seemingly are attacked by some type of swamp creature. And whilst the daughter has now gone missing, her father hires a couple of locals to try and go and look for his daughter and the professor, who obviously go out into the Everglades to try and find her. Will they succeed? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So this is a super low budget, family, as I say, kiddie friendly really, horror movie. I have to say, do kids really watch low-budget Z-grade horrors? I mean, I did when I was a youngster, but to be honest with you, there wasn't many options back then. Nowadays, I'm not quite as sure. So, what can we say that works in this movie's favour? If there is, in fact, a child who you want to get into the world of Z-grade horror movies, then this might be an option for you. There's no swearing, it's no blood, there's no real violence in the movie. Mild kind of like creature effects. So there's that. What I will say that genuinely looks pretty good is obviously it being filmed in the Everglades. Some of the location shooting, I have to say, is very nice, and there is a decent some decent kind of camera work, especially in regards to some underwater shots and things like this. And surprisingly enough, there are some acting here that actually was far better than I was expecting in a movie like this. It is not across the board, but nonetheless there are a couple of like performances that seemed to take it quite seriously and were relatively sincere. To the point where I was like, this isn't a spoof, because this genuinely seems like actual acting here. So there's that. It's obviously somewhat of a play on Creature from the Black Lagoon, but there's elements of Frankenstein in a way, certainly once you've watched the film. So, you know, again, if you like Z-grade horror and you're a fan of the Universal monsters, then maybe you'd like this. It's inoffensive. It is kind of like something to put on if you just like... This is like one of those films that when you watch another, you know, low-budget horror movie and there's a scene where they're watching some kind of cruddy film on the TV, this is that film. This is that film where it looks like they've made just a scene from a crud movie. This could be that movie. This could be that crud movie. But let's be real here, folks. Who is this made for? I have no idea, because I cannot fathom any child wanting to watch this. It is not interesting for a child. It's just like adults, for the most part, arguing or having dialogue sequences, you know, sometimes going around in this Everglades, sometimes on the water. There is actually very little creature in this. There's nothing really to entice kids here. There is a child character, but she doesn't really come into it really until the last third of the movie. I can't understand this being made for a family audience. It just isn't like goofy. And as I say, I was surprised at how some some characters at least are taken quite seriously, and even those that I would say are a little bit more goofy, they're not over the top. There's a little bit of kind of like goofiness, but like they are kind of one of our trackers, and him and his wife are kind of like going through marital troubles. He's drinking, he's having an affair, so it's not really like kiddie stuff exactly. I mean, there's no swearing. It's nothing like too adult, but the situations here are like, you know, relatively adult sort of situations without being anything explicit. Yeah, but their characters are a little bit more goofy. Certainly the husband, but there are other characters. Like we see like a couple of random other people out on this water seem to be fine, but other characters are goofy. It's a real tonal mix. The biggest issue I have with this movie is the editing, which I think was done by the director. Oh boy, the editing is some of the worst. For some reason, at the beginning of the movie, they have like a show reel of clips from the same movie and that are out of context. It doesn't really make sense. And then like 10 minutes later, you're seeing that same scene again, thinking, what the hell is going on? There's just some awful editing. I mean, we're meant to believe, for example, that there's are kind of this science professor and his assistant are lost out in the Everglades, and it kind of cuts to various kind of like shots. But then we just see a shot with like, it's like a kind of like a riverbank in that same kind of montage and things like this. It's just horrible edits. There is horrible music effects that has this kind of like sound effects, which is like almost like a comedy drama sound effect, is the best way I would describe it. It's like, I mean, this movie is not like a jokey film necessarily. As I say, there's some characters here that are a little bit sort of like over the top, but it has this kind of like almost like weird sound effects. Not even musical score. I think it's meant to be a little bit like, you know, when the creature is around, it's like, but it sounds like comical, but it's not like a comedy. It's just awful. Let's talk about that creature. It's a guy in a ghillie suit, basically. And he's just like thrashing around in the water, but we don't really see it ever do anything. It doesn't really do anything. It's just kind of like milling around. I mean, there's a couple of sequences where, you know, people are getting dragged, but we never see the actual creature do anything. Like it's off screen. It feels like a pointless movie. It feels pointless, and then the ending. The ending is where it kind of almost goes, let's go full on kiddie. And I'm talking right at the end. And there was a decision. There's a decision here where it takes a real left turn, where it's, for the most part, the movie's been played relatively straight. And in the last, like, 3 or 4 minutes, it decides to do something else. That's all I'm going to say. And normally you might think, is there some dark twist? No, it's the other way. And that's the kiddier moment, but it's like right at the end. And it's just like, a kid's going to watch this movie up until this point. I do not think so. It's just like, I mean, it kind of plays a little bit like one of these like 50s kind of monster movies. But it's not really trying to be like that. It just happens to kind of end up playing a little like that. Had they lent into that and tried to make it like a retro style movie and it try and be like a 50s movie and have more of that set of sensibilities, I think maybe you could have got away with it having like being a bit more of like a spoof or something like that. But as it stands at the moment, it's just like, who is this made for? It just doesn't, oh man. Why do I watch things on Tubi? Why do I click on stuff? Anyway, I have to be honest with you. This was. I'm going to be generous and give it a 3 out of 10. I was going to go for a 2, but it's kind of good-hearted, I guess you would say. So I feel bad giving it a 2. So I'm going to give it a 3. Aren't I generous? 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.